Welcome to Criminologist, where we delve deep into the minds and motives of the world's most notorious criminals. In today's episode, we're uncovering the shocking and twisted life of Nannie Doss, a seemingly sweet woman who earned the infamous nickname the Giggling Grandma. But behind her smile hid something far more sinister. From a tragic childhood to a string of murders that spanned decades, Nannie Doss left a trail of death, all in the name of her quest for true romance. Born November 4th, 1905 in Anniston, Blue Mountain, Alabama, Nancy Hazel was one of 5 children, with 3 sisters and 1 brother. An adult Nannie Doss was eventually given the nickname the Giggling Grandma, a misnomer, as this was a very dark and evil woman. She was also called by some media outlets Arsenic Annie, a far more accurate and concise nickname for this infamous serial killer. After her capture, Nannie Doss would later tell interviewers that her life was made up of an eternal search for, quote, the real romance of life. This price of the supposed eternal search would be in the form of the lives of Nannie's 4 husbands, her 2 children, her 2 sisters, her mother, her infant grandson, and her nephew. Some wonder if her murderous intentions originated from an early childhood injury that occurred when Nannie's family was riding a train to visit relatives. When the passenger train came to a sudden and abrupt stop, the youngster was thrown forward and slammed her forehead on a metal bar on the back of the seat in front of her. For years afterwards, she would suffer bouts of depression, as well as numerous headaches and even instances of blackouts. She would later claim in court, some say erroneously, that this injury was the main cause of her poisonous predilections. As a teenager, she recalls she picked up her mother's love of romance novels and would spend hours at home as an adolescent, reading and dreaming of future love. Her father, strict and controlling, forbade Nannie and her sisters from wearing makeup and kept them inside as much as possible in an effort to separate them from the dangers of the public and the men that populate it. But his attempts would be in vain, as Nannie recalls that by the time she was 16, she had been sexually abused by several older men. Her first official romance was found in the arms of her first husband, whom she met at the young age of 16 and married after knowing him for only 4 months. Husband number 1 was named Charles Braggs, and with him, Nannie had 4 children in the span of time from 1923 to 1927, and these very children would become her first victims. Over time, due somewhat in part to a horrendously controlling and abusive mother-in-law who dominated the lives of the couple, Nannie developed a drinking problem and would often chain smoke cigarettes and drink from sun up to sundown and throughout the evening hours, well into dawn. In this time, she was hostile to her spouse, and neighbors spoke of the late-night quarrels over each spouse's perceived infidelity, with Charles disappearing from the marital house for days at a time. In 1927, Nannie's husband suffered the pain of discovering the victims of Nannie's first set of murders, as twice within a period of months, upon returning home from work, he would find one of his daughters, the second and then the 3rd eldest child, dead both times apparently from accidental poisoning. In both cases, he recalled that the child cried at his leaving and that Nannie would tell him later they died while having convulsions. After the first and even more so after the second death, Nannie's husband was highly suspicious of this story and left his wife and took the couple's firstborn daughter Melvina along with him. He would cut all contact with Nannie, who was still at home with her mother-in-law, healing after giving birth to her newest child, Florine, who was a newborn at the time. Today, criminal profilers wonder if postpartum depression may have played a role in the poisoning of her 2 children, but at the time such afflictions were not spoken of, and there was no investigation into the supposed accidental deaths of 2 innocent children, which occurred so closely together. After her 2 children's untimely passing, Nannie received 2 life insurance payouts and ended up moving to Cedartown, Georgia, where she would meet and marry her second husband, Robert Franklin Harrelson, in 1929. Less than 18 months after her second wedding, Nannie would abandon her youngest child, Florine, only 2 years old at the time, alone in the couple's home, and would take to the road with her new husband, unencumbered by the innocent children she had previously brought into the world. Neighbors of the newlyweds were able to save the child by tracking down her father, Charles Braggs, and he was able to come get her. She was not permanently harmed from the ordeal, at least not physically. In this period of time, Nannie continued her murderous spree and was reported by family members who were present at her granddaughter's birth as having brutally murdered her own newborn granddaughter in the very hospital she was born in. The so-called Giggling Grandma was said to have done this by taking a sharp hairpin and sticking it in the baby's fontanelle, also known as its soft spot, a part of the skull not fully closed off from the brain after birth. Later in 1945, Nannie's daughter Melvina would entrust her mother with the care of her own toddler, Nannie's grandson, 2-year-old Robert Lee. He would stay with his grandmother for only 3 days before accidentally ingesting rat poison and passing away. After the infant's death, his grandmother, the consummate griever, collected on a $500 life insurance policy she had taken out on him, roughly $780 in today's money. Frank Harrelson. Nannie Doss's second husband also died in 1945 on September 15th, the same year that Doss killed her own grandson. While was reported as that Doss's second husband suffered a seemingly unexpected illness that left him dead within the week, in all actuality, the illness was anything but unexpected, nor was it unexplained. Nannie had added odorless and tasteless arsenic rat poison to his corn liquor. Insurance policies paid Nannie $2,000, which was about $25,000 in today's money. Using the ill-begotten life insurance payout, Nannie purchased 10 acres of land in Jacksonville, and on it was able to build a new home for herself in which to continue her murderous predilections. Nannie's third husband, Arlie Lanning, whom she met using the Lonely Hearts column in the newspaper and whom she married after knowing only 3 days, died in Lexington, North Carolina in 1952. After his death, their marital home mysteriously went up in flames, and in addition to the $1,500 that she collected from his insurance policy, she reaped another $1,000 from the settlement of a fire insurance policy, a net gain of nearly $27,000 for the ever-grieving widow. Mere months after her third husband's death, Nannie would surreptitiously kill her own mother in January of 1953, utilizing her access to the woman as she was her primary caregiver during her convalescence period after she had broken her hip. In this period of time, 2 of Nannie's sisters died the same year, each in different towns while Nannie was visiting them. Their symptoms mirrored each other: stomach cramps and convulsions. By the time 1953 rolled around, the very busy Nannie had set her sights on a new target husband, number 4, Richard L. Morton, Sr., 69, of Emporia, Kansas. She had come to know him through correspondence stemming from an advertisement placed in the Lonely Hearts Club, portion of the Diamond Circle Club publication. His life was insured for $1,500, which is equivalent to nearly $16,000 in today's money. Poisoned like the rest of them by his beloved wife Nannie, just like the rest of her husbands, his ominous last words were recalled as being, quote, "I shouldn't have drunk that second cup of coffee." He died May 19, 1953, and was laid to rest in his hometown of Emporia, Kansas. Nannie married her fifth and final husband, Samuel Doss, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in July of 1954. Just 1 month later, on October 10, 1954, he too would pass away from mysterious yet strangely familiar circumstances. Nannie mixed her poison of choice in with her fifth husband's daily bowl of prunes and his cup of coffee. He sure did love those stewed prunes, she wistfully recalls about him after his death. After his surreptitious death, the on-call doctor, possibly already suspicious, ordered an autopsy, and the toxicology report later revealed that his body contained enough arsenic to kill 20 men. At the same time as she was in the process of killing her fifth husband, Samuel Doss, the grieving repeat widow-to-be, again, was reportedly setting her sights on her sixth husband, a dairy farmer from North Carolina. Reports detail that she had already begun cooking homemade meals for him as she had mailed him a cake. Those who knew the farmer say that he was eager to meet the woman he thought he might eventually marry. After seeing the toxicology results, authorities promptly arrested Nannie, and on May 17, 1955, she pleaded guilty to the murder of her husband, Samuel Doss, and while she was sentenced to life in prison by the state of Oklahoma, she was not given the death penalty due to her gender and the politics surrounding that issue at the time. It wouldn't be for many years that Nannie would admit that she had also ended her third marriage by putting rat poison in Harrelson's corn whiskey that he kept buried in the ground between swigs. At the same time, she admitted that her 2-year-old grandson, quote, just might have gotten hold of some rat poison. In all, she would confess to killing 4 of her husbands, her mother, her sister, her grandson Robert Lee, and her mother-in-law Arlie Lanning's mother. She insists that there was no monetary motivation to her numerous crimes, and says in regards to her, many husbands were simply her acting on the tales she loved to read in her true romance magazines. Quote, that's about it, Nannie told those questioning her. Quote, I was searching for the perfect mate, the real romance of life. This, however, does not account for the many non-romantic life insurance payouts she received. Nannie Doss would go on to serve 10 years of her life sentence in prison before succumbing to leukemia in 1965 at the age of 59. What do you think drove Nannie Doss to commit such heinous acts? Was it the head injury from her childhood, her obsession with romance, or something far more sinister? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the twisted life of Nannie Doss, hit that subscribe button for more true crime stories that will leave you questioning everything. Stay tuned to Criminologist, where we explore the dark side of human nature. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most ordinary people hide the darkest secrets. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.